Welcome to our show, Conversation with Priya. Today, our guest, Ramesh Ramanathan. Ramesh Ramanathan is a chairman and managing director of Sterling Holding Resort Limited, a leading vacation ownership and experiential holiday company in India. An MBA graduate from the Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and with over 4 decades of experience that spans across a range of industry, Mr. Ramanathan has nurtured two of the largest vacation ownership companies in India. Ramesh's career in the industry begins with the Sterling Holiday Report in 1991, where he worked to successfully position the company in the global vacation ownership market. Also, as the founder of Mahindra Holiday and Resort, Mr. Ramanathan is responsible for the establishment of the Club Mahindra brand. Returning to Sterling in 2011, Mr. Ramanathan transformed the company, taking it to the new heights. The advantage of the company under him was furthered by its acquisition by Fairfax Financial Holding Limited, a global investment and insurance holding company headquartered in Toronto, Canada, with global asset worth more than USD 40 billion. Sterling relaunched its brand in December 2017 under his leadership. Ramesh is the founder member and an ex-chairman of the All India Resort Developer Association and has served on the National Committee of the Tourism Confederation of Indian Industry. Outside of the business world, Ramesh is also a connoisseur of art and Carnatic music. So, help me to welcome Mr. Ramesh Ramanathan. Thank you for joining in today, Ramesh. Thank you for accepting my request today, and you are so welcome in our Priya conversation with Priya today. Would you like to tell something about you to our audience?
Of course, Priya, with pleasure. Firstly, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on your show. It's great to be talking using technology and talking across borders, across continents, in this case. So
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
really, yeah. So I've been briefly, most of my career, majority of the career, I've been in the hospitality industry. But that is not to say, I haven't done anything else. I passed out of my Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, with my MBA, one of the premier institutes in the world now. It's ranked in the world top business institutes. After that, I worked in the paints industry for some time. I worked a series of industries, paints for a very long time. Then I was in building materials. I was in tires. I was in internet for a very short while in the early days, and and retail. And finally, when I got into hospitality, somehow I grew with hospitality, and hospitality grew with me. And in both these cases, now I think it is a good almost 27, 30 years in hospitality. So I'm not your traditional hotel person. If you notice, I'm not saying I'm a hotelier. I'm saying I'm a hospitality person, because that's what I am. Because I sort of brought in a lot of, I would say, commonsensical approach or a consumer-based approach into the industry. The good part is that ever since I've been, I consider myself lucky, because I love what I do. And if you love what you do and you're also getting paid for it, I think it's a double bonus always. Yes. So that's the case with me. I've been with the two top holiday companies in the country. First, I started with Sterling. Then I founded Mahindra Holidays, or Club Mahindra for the Mahindras. I was with them for almost 12, 13 years, followed by another 10 years now with Sterling. So that's where I am.
That's interesting. So your journey has been very interesting, and especially entrepreneurial journey as well. It's just not being hotelier, but also you are more of an entrepreneur kind of a person. That brings to my next question, and I would like to know about Sterling Holiday broke into India's corporate scene some 3 decades ago with the incredible innovation and concept of timeshare in holiday experience. Can you tell us on the origin of the idea of timeshare, and how do you see the future of Sterling Holiday Resorts?
Okay. Yes, you are right. Sterling did start in 1986. So that is how old we are. One of the oldest holiday companies in the country. It was started by a first generation entrepreneur. Somebody was a chartered accountant. He started it, and the timeshare concept was already available in the West. In the US, it was very popular, Europe, all that. He thought that Indians at that time, holidaying meant that you did it once a year, you packed your bags, went to your grandfather's place, or you went, as they say, visiting VFR, we used to call it, visiting family and relatives. That was the holiday, right?
Yeah.
All of us, I think, at some stage have gone through it. You all land up in summer at your grandfather's place and, you have fun. It's good fun.
Yeah.
But then he realized that things are going to change and he started it and he borrowed this concept because it was a nice mix of you sort of investing in a holiday. So you take a holiday every year. At the same time, it becomes inflation proof and so on. So that is how the company was started. But then having said that, it very quickly metamorphosed into the Indian culture.
Yeah.
Because abroad, as you know, in the more developed countries, the habits are different. For example, I've noticed in the US, Europe, and I'm sure even in Australia too, they have a holiday calendar where everybody plans 1 year in advance in companies. You have to tell them when you're going, where you're going. And people also used to know where to go. As you know, like it happens in Australia, you go to the Gold Coast in summer, for the sun and so on. Whereas in India, it was not that fixed. So they changed the concept around a little bit. They did not make it fixed. The concept originally was, tied down into property. All that was released. So it started developing. Invariably abroad, it is self-catering. Whereas Sterling decided to set up restaurants so that people need not necessarily. Funnily enough, in India, people were not willing to cook when they were on a holiday. They wanted to actually come outside and eat.
Yeah.
And they set up this concept of holiday activities to engage children and adults. So it was it evolved and changed. So to that extent, Sterling Holidays is the pioneer in terms of holidays in the country. And attuning it to Indian consumer.
Yeah. So that flavor of the cultural context is evolved with the Sterling itself. Very interesting. Because not
fact, in fact, it'd be very, as you would know, in a typical Sterling resort or any resort in the country, India, the country is diverse. The food habits are different every 200 miles or 200 kilometers, and you have to cater to everybody.
Yeah.
So it is that, you can't give a standard food and expect everybody to be happy. So there are a lot of changes which had to be made. Yeah. And over a period of time, Sterling has evolved, and along with that, the industry and, the product has evolved, the industry has evolved. What Sterling offers today, if you turn back, is very, very different than what it was in the early 2000s.
Yeah. And I always believe if a business is not evolving with the time, it's very easy to lose the market quickly.
Absolutely. Not only the market, I think for example, when I was in the industry, people used to take once a year vacations.
Yeah.
Now, if you see, invariably in the Indian market, in the domestic market, people may take multiple vacations.
Yeah.
So your product had to change. And for example, the type of holidays that people take in India, they take typical leisure holidays.
Yeah.
Which is your, mountains, beaches, jungles, and so on. Then they do heritage places. People go to, Jaipur or an Agra or a Mysore. Then they do, and as you know, one of the very inherent practices in India is going on a pilgrimage every year.
Yeah.
So we had to cater. So as a company, we have now changed. We have included all this as part of the holiday. So we have generally described holiday now as anything other than work for which you will take leave and go. And therefore, the holiday universe itself has changed. And as a company, we are now having all these sort of locations in our portfolio. It is not necessarily a conventional leisure destination.
That's interesting. Because a lot of people are not evolving with the time and also not including the cultural context. India is a diverse country. It has also taste and flavor, and every type of expectations you can imagine you can find in one country. With It's hats off to us that with all that diversity, we are still actually living happily, kind of things. Kind of
Yes.
another country. Every country has its own problem, but we are.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful to see the companies are actually accepting and adopting to the situation and accepting all parts of the world and evolving with that time. India has often been described as a tourism powerhouse, yet the inbound tourism in this country operates below the optimum level. What are your suggestions for a healthy growth in the industry in India?
Okay. The primary issues, Priya, and it's good you're asking this, is more to do with infrastructure.
Yeah.
Okay, rather than anything else.
Yeah.
As you know, I think the basis of our hospitality is Atiti Devo Bhava, which means you are not a guest, you are a god.
Yeah.
Any guest is a god. And so therefore, I think our approach to hospitality is amazing. The philosophy behind it is amazing. I always say India is like a maxi Europe. So, the variety in food, the variety in, culture, all that, as you said, is fantastic. But what affected us to a large extent was infrastructure. But then if you turn back, and while it is still below what it should be when you compare it to a France or a Singapore or even Australia for that matter, I think it's picking up. Why? Because of some of the moves the government has made. One is in terms of roads, in terms of airports and air connectivity, and in terms of overall sophistication of the hotels. Hospitality. Yeah. All this has changed. I think it's picking up. It's still some way to go. I think Corona has set back plans for everybody because not able to travel. But once that is over, I think things will start improving. But having said that, I want to make one point here, which is to say that the Indian market is resilient because it has a huge domestic tourism potential. Just imagine if this many people decide to move, 1.25 billion people decide to move. So the domestic market is always there for us.
Yeah.
But we need also inbound traffic to come in. I think after Corona, I expect to see an increase because all infrastructure aspects are being addressed. Highways, for example, have really increased the construction of highways. Airports, new airports have been opened up.
Yeah.
So, for example, in India, earlier, in terms of domestic tourism, people used to travel from, let us say, from Delhi to the south. They used to go to 10 different places. It used to be a long trip of 15 days and then they go back. Today, people from Delhi come to Goa for a weekend and go back because it is possible to do so.
Yeah.
Right? So connectivity has improved, and I think inbound tourism will go up once this travel restrictions are lifted. And constantly I'm saying infrastructure, is it already there? No. But will it be there? Yes. Things are improving. So for example, so there are all sorts of foreign brands which are coming. They have all established their presence. And therefore, there is a lot more people who are willing to come in now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember when I was in Delhi and to go to Agra, it was 3 hours. And if traffic is there, it can go anytime. But now my brothers and sisters are telling me it's like 1 hour journey, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
I'm from Lucknow. So from Delhi to Lucknow, it's like it used to be 12 hours journey. Now my sisters are traveling between Lucknow and Delhi 5 hours.
Absolutely. The same thing between Chennai and Bangalore.
Yeah.
It used to take so long. Now you can do it in 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Yeah. So that's
it's improving all the time. It's improving all the time. So.
Yes. And the beauty of an Indian culture is that we always promoted this whole tourism concept through pilgrims, through worshipping places, through the important places of every god and goddesses, and the important places of the saint and the wisdom we actually acquired throughout the centuries.
So one of the things which we have done, and I must add here, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but in the last 2 years, we have started something in Sterling Holidays called Discoveries and Experiences. Basically, earlier, we used to, D&E used to be the concept. And what we used to do is that earlier, if you had a location, let's say Shimla, people used to come in. We used to go by what is already few places there and arrange for that.
Yeah.
Then we said, this is not enough. We need to help people discover Shimla, its heritage, its folklore, whatever.
Yeah.
So we are now doing discoveries and experiences in a big way. Since you said you are from Delhi, in Mussoorie, there is this place called Lambi Deher mine.
Right.
Okay. Now this is a mine where it's supposed to be a haunted mine.
Oh, okay.
Because there was an accident. I mean, it's one of those stories.
Yeah.
But nobody used to go there. We have now developed, dark tourism is also developed. So we organize a trip there for people to see and come back. This is the sort of discovery of Mussoorie that we are doing. Similarly with, fruits in Mussoorie or the food of Mussoorie and so on. So we are doing all that now in a big way.
Yeah, very interesting. Because the more we will educate to the external world, even in India, not many people are aware of all parts of the world, and every city has. I'm pretty sure every city I go, I always find something unique. Even in villages, I found very uniqueness in each village. So there is always something to find in the different cities. That's the beauty of our Indian, overall geographic location. So tourism has a good scope for sure. I heard that it was a $8 trillion industry worldwide, and it was growing, been hit badly. I'm pretty sure this is gonna come back, and when it will come back, it is gonna go bigger than it was. I'm pretty sure.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, but you have been a constant figure in the industry right from its inception. What has been the enduring factor that has led to the professional career fully identified with this industry?
Thank you. It's a question. I think it is something I love to talk. Nobody has asked me, but let me answer that. The first thing I said was, coming from a very selfish point of view, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm getting paid for it. So I think that is good.
Beauty of this, yes.
Yeah. The second thing that you said is that India has a lot of things to discover.
Yeah.
And I think through this means of this working in this company, I'm helping people discover it.
Yeah.
The third thing, and I'm really happy for this opportunity because, as you know, in India, employment opportunities are at different levels.
Mm-hmm.
We have now, of course, software engineers all over the world and all that. But then there is a level below of people who have just passed out of school who need jobs. And I think hospitality industry does that. Not only that, while hospitality industry overall does that even in cities, we are going to places which are remote. And as a matter of our policy, we employ 30 to 40% local people. We train them from those regions where they have very little opportunities, and we train them. It's a great satisfaction that we do it. Finally, it also gives an opportunity. There are two things which we focus on, apart from being an industry and all that. We focus on the education and environment in the area. So we work actively towards wherever we are located, we work very actively. Rather than in cities, we make an impact where we are.
Yeah.
So I think these are the things that have sustained me all there. And as you know, I'm going nonstop, not even allowing you to talk. That's how much I love this industry.
No, that's the passion I can see every time I hear you. But see that it's very beautiful that you guys are doing, because CSR is actively getting attended by a lot of larger institutes, which is very good. And they are actually participating actively, and government is also bringing some rules for the larger organizations to participate in the CSR level, which is very interesting to see. And the biggest problem for overall Indian geography, that a lot of people from rural side is coming to the urban area in search of job. They don't want to come. There are a lot of people do not like leaving their hometown or village, right? If we can create that kind of opportunity which you are talking about, it could not get any better, right? And that will also reduce the burden on the urban area, and villages will still continue flourishing, because that's our identity. I still believe village is our identity. That's where we
Absolutely. 100%. And I think tourism has a big role to play in it. I think, as I said, with this increased highways and penetration into the rural areas and wealth getting distributed into the rural areas, I think hospitality size will improve. One of the things about Indian hospitality, especially I'm saying holiday hospitality or leisure destinations, is the scale has not become very large. Okay, the scale is still small. So if you have a 100-room hotel, it's considered very large. Given the population of India, I mean, I'm saying, look at a Las Vegas, 1,000-room hotels and so on. Why can't India have that?
Yeah.
Even a Goa doesn't have very big hotels except for one or two.
Yeah.
So I think that is the next step. And once that happens, I think what you said, a lot more of people in the local area will be able to get employment locally.
Yeah.
And when we go to that area, we give direct employment. There is a lot of indirect employment also which happens. So I think our industry, the leisure industry, has a huge part to play, hospitality industry, in terms of, keeping people where they are and giving them opportunities.
Yeah. And also that's also comes to the responsibility for the people like us who is little successful and belongs, everybody has a root of village, right? I came from a village, right? And my in-laws are from my village. So if I'll take my responsibility to any of that village to support at any extent, and if I can gather some more urban people to support our own village, I think that distribution will be much better than what we have. If we will come out that selfish need and we can create some kind of philanthropy, and if we start our philanthropy from home, would be really even better for any industry, and we all should participate in that. And that's, I mean, government brought that concept, adopt a village, right? But to be honest, if I'm not billionaire, can't I do anything? We can. Maybe it will not be the very large scale, but every little droplet does matter.
Absolutely, 100%. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, that's something I really appreciate when you explain me all that, what you guys are doing on the village side. Online platforms are now a key player in the hospitality sector. Do you think they are a necessary evil, or do you still believe that in-person approach is much better?
Good question. I'm always thankful about one thing, and I keep telling people, while lots of services are getting, all this artificial intelligence and, digitized and so on, I said hospitality is one thing that will require two people, somebody, being pleasant and exchanging warmth. So I said we are in a safe industry. But having said that, I think digital is the way to go, because anything ultimately, Priya, is, how you use it.
Yeah.
Right? And you use it differently, then it can affect you. Use it well, it can promote. Artificial intelligence helps you understand your customers better.
Yeah.
Online travel agencies have been able to reach out to a lot of people. So the idea is to work with them. I personally believe, we saw, industrial revolution and all that. I think all of us are fortunate enough to be in an age where we are seeing another huge revolution happen. And the way we work and the way we think has to change.
Yeah.
And therefore, it is a question of using all these. I don't consider online travel agencies as a necessary evil. I think they are necessary. Yeah. And so is every other digitization aspect.
Yeah.
I think they're all necessary. It depends on how well you use it. You cannot put a robo and then say, okay, it takes care of everything. I think ultimately a human brain is that much more faster and it will be able to react. And I think we need person-to-person interaction. So it's a mix of both and how we adapt to it as we go along.
Yeah. And that emotional quest is always plays a bigger role when it comes to the hospitality level. It definitely plays a bigger role in that sense. So what I believe in this overall and online, that's also I would like to contribute here, that if you are putting this online, it is also making aware, right? How would a person would know that what's happening in the corner of the Chennai, right? It will only happen if you will be coming online and telling the world about it.
Right. Absolutely.
So
all of them, they are able to access it and so on. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so different. I have two children, one living in San Francisco and one living in Sydney, and I get to know within minutes of whatever is going on because there's a WhatsApp, there's a Facebook, and so on and so forth. So
Yeah.
it is useful if you make it useful. So that's how it is, and you are
Very,
absolutely
very,
right.
very true. And I mean, it's been very helpful for me being living isolation. We know how it is important, and we used it. But for the businesses, it's really even better getting to go global. We really come living into the global village. How we are gonna embrace it? That's the another part of the story, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, ever since this corona, that even corona, a lot of people said, "Oh, it is bad" and all that. I said, "Yes, it's bad, but I think there are a lot of learnings out of this." While I'm not, earlier if you had to physically meet people, you had to, work out a lot of things.
Yeah.
How do you travel? Whereas the Zoom is actually helping you be in touch with people, and this is not only at work, Priya. I think even in terms of family, ever since Corona happened, we have had family meetings
Yeah.
once a month, family bhajans and so on, once a month with people across the globe, from East Coast of US, West Coast of US, Australia, everywhere, joining in. You
Very
have to only adjust for the time factor, but otherwise you are actually seeing them more often.
Yeah. So interesting. And if it would have not been there, we wouldn't be embracing the technology right now. I mean, Zoom was there 10 years ago, but this pandemic taught us how to use it and why to use it.
Absolutely.
So we found our answer automatically. And also the education system, a lot of things didn't stop because of this technology embracement, which we are actually doing it right now. Very interesting. So that brings to my last question. How does a successful M&A, mergers and acquisition deal work? What are the synergies partner need to look for and the pitfall to avoid? I know you did the acquisition, so that's why I thought it would be best to ask you this question.
So, you look at all the normal things, which is your, when you look at a acquisition, you look at the potential of the company, its relatability to your business, its ability to throw cash in the future. I think these are all things that so you look for value in the company. One, of course, is you can I can go and buy other hospitality companies, but if I have surplus, I can go and buy anything anyway. But people try and tend to stick to the knitting and buy. But I think what is most important in M&A, provided all these things are you have qualified them, you still need to look at a good management team. Does that company, because ultimately everybody carries a lot of knowledge which they have developed over a period of time, which is there within the company. And that is something that one needs to ensure. It is not that you can take something over and minus its people, it has the same value. So all I'm saying is that you need to look at a business fit, you need to look at future cash flows, but you also need to look at how good people are and how whether they can carry it into the next level of performance and operations.
Yeah. As you said in the last conversation that, people should invest in the leadership.
Absolutely.
People.
Absolutely.
And I always believed that your employees and the leadership team is your asset, right?
Absolutely.
If you really want to grow, even though you are acquiring a business, pick the right person for your team because they are the asset. Don't throw them away. Very hard to build that kind of an asset. You can build the material asset. It's very, very hard to build the asset the leadership and the workers can bring with who would be involved long time in that business.
Very true. Very true.
So thank you so much for joining in today. It was nice chatting with you as always. And I will be looking forward to meet again in the future. Thank you so much.
Priya, thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure talking to you. As I said, it looks as if, we are right here, but, we are thousands of kilometers apart. It's really lovely. And I look forward. I must say this. I loved Australia. I love the restaurants you have in Sydney and Melbourne. So I'm a foodie. I'm a vegetarian, but I'm still a foodie. And I really loved it when I was there last. So I'm looking forward to visiting Australia soon.
Sure. We will be looking forward to meet you. All your details will be given down below. People wants to visit India must visit to Sterling and get contacted with him on the social media. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day.